Was it just a night of bad shooting or a Tom Thibodeau special? We'll get into why the Knicks dropped a painful game two.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Gavin, Schall, your Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast. He is Alex Wolfe, editor-in-chief of the Strictly the Greatest Knicks website in the whole wide world. You can check them out on all forms of social media over at the strict.land. If you didn't know, now you do. This is the Locked On Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, your daily podcast on the New York Knicks, giving you the most detailed insight on your favorite team 5 days a week. And be sure to join thousands of other Knicks fans in subscribing on both YouTube and your favorite podcast platform for the best insight on your favorite team every single day. Alex, on today's show, we're talking through a 100-94 game two loss against the Detroit Pistons. Pistons led by 13 points, I believe, in the fourth quarter. Knicks fight their way back to tie it. Ultimately, Mikal Bridges misses a shot with about 15 seconds to go, straight on three, would have tied the game. Jalen Brunson's heroics after what I thought was, I'll put it generously, a very up and down game for him. Not enough for the Knicks to come back. They dropped game two. We'll tell you where the blame lies, maybe why some of it is on Tom Thibodeau. Some of it was on Jalen Brunson, and Karl-Anthony Towns disappears in the second half of this one. We'll get into all of that. But first, I want to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And if 5 episodes a week is not enough for you, the Locked On Knicks podcast now has a Locked On Knicks newsletter, the one-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter to see writing from Alex and I, our team of national writers here at Locked On, and potentially win a whole lot of money from Best Buy and a couple of other places. We'll tell you about that at the end of the episode. But Alex, without further ado, who should I be mad at coming out of a really frustrating game two loss to the Pistons?
Take your pick. I don't know if there's like one person that you could definitively blame for this game. Although if I was going to, let's say that I had a dartboard and it had all the people on it you could potentially be mad at, and I threw a dart at it, but they were all weighted by being bigger. For the more mad you should probably be at them, I would imagine the Tibbs would be pretty large on that bubble chart. Just not a great game by him. I mean, I thought pretty much every aspect that he needed to do well in this game, he did poorly in. Just in general, I don't think the game plan, I just don't think there was one. It seemed like first half he attempted to play a couple bench players, played Campaign 4 minutes, played Landry Shamet 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Deuce did not really have it going in this game, but wasn't like horrendous. And only played 13 minutes and 20 seconds. Mitch played 20 minutes. We barely saw the two big arrangement, which I think we were both in agreement, like kind of was one of the swinging factors of the first game. Part of what made that 21-0 run like cook was having Cat and Mitch out there with shooting. And yet barely went to that except for when Josh Hart was in foul trouble. So Josh Hart plays. I was shocked. I literally was shocked. I looked and I was like, I could swear he played the entire second half. Apparently he sat for 3 minutes at some point. I forgot when that was, but blink and you miss it, I guess, because every minute that he was out there was, I mean, I don't want to harp on it too much and like pretend that I'm just like blaming him entirely for this or something, but every minute that he was on the floor was pain in this game. I mean, there was just, it was the worst possible version of Josh Hart. And yet we got the third most minutes on the team out of him in this game, only behind OG and Brunson. To say nothing of the fact that like OG drew the hardest assignment on Cade Cunningham in this game, and yet Cade ends up playing, I guess they roughly matched each other's minutes, but like there maybe would have been a little benefit to giving Shamet like another 3 minutes in the second half, give OG just like that little extra bit of time off the floor because he looked pretty gassed down the stretch of the game. Jalen Brunson subs himself out again, and it was a little less cute this time. I don't know if he had to take a dump or if he had to switch his shoes, but he definitely switched his shoes. So if he subbed himself out just to switch shoes again, like, bro, just find a pair of shoes that works for you and just stick with it. Like, if those are the ones that are good, like, don't sub yourself out of a game down the stretch of it to go change your freaking shoes. But it's either way, he played a little better after that, but it was just completely unimaginative offense down the stretch. It's kind of like, I think you mentioned this to me before the show, and it totally resonated with me. Like, it's like he's still coaching this team like it's last year's team, and like you have to rely on Jalen Brunson to do all this, completely ignoring the fact that like last year's team only had to operate that way because Julius Randle was hurt, and because Mitchell Robinson was hurt, and because OG Anunoby was mostly hurt in that Pacers series and everything else. And like you had other talent on the team, but they were just all hurt, so you had to rely on like Brunson and Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo to like play 46 minutes a game or whatever, because that was just like the only thing that you had at your disposal. This team is at full strength right now. They traded for all this talent in the offseason. Mikal Bridges, like, he got some touches down the stretch and actually got up 18 shots in this game. So like, but it just, something felt off with him, like with how he was being utilized down the stretch. Cat takes his last shot with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. And all in favor of like running Josh Hart pick and rolls with Jalen Brunson down the stretch of this game. Like, it didn't make any sense to me. The whole game plan just sucked. It was terrible. And it almost felt, it's not often that like if my team is in a position to like quote steal a game that I'm ever like, oh, this actually sort of feels a little dirty in this position right now. And yet when the Knicks tied it up at 92 late in this game, I was like, they don't deserve this. Like, it's crazy that Detroit has managed to shoot poorly enough to let them come back and get to 92-92, because the Knicks had no business winning this game, and go figure they didn't. So yeah, it was pretty bad game, pretty bad time. I'll let you pick which of those million things I just mentioned to zero in on first.
Yeah, good blame pie by you. You gave me all the candidates. Yeah, I look to both Tom Thibodeau and Jalen Brunson. I agree with your assessment of my assessment pre-show, that it just feels like this is it's the exact same game plan in the playoffs. Like, roll out the ball and it's Jalen go save us. And you gave up whatever it was, 6-7 first round picks to bring in Mikal Bridges, to bring in Karl-Anthony Towns, and to presumably like revolutionize this offense. And because Tom Thibodeau is, for whatever reason, there's just an incredible rigidity there, and he is like pot committed to a starting lineup that, playing far more minutes than any other lineup in the league, was decidedly average on the season. And after the All-Star break was worse than that. They had a negative net rating after the All-Star break. And it's not just that the starters played so many minutes. Like, the sin to me is that they played almost all those minutes together. Like, you have minutes in the first half with both Towns and Brunson on the bench. That doesn't really make any sense to me. You have bench units without Mikal Bridges. Like, if you are not going to like spoon feed him the ball when Tim Hardaway's hiding on him, and like Mikal, if he's the guy you traded 5 first round picks for, even like throw that out the window. Like, just Mikal, purely like by the merit of his own talent, should be able to cook Tim Hardaway one-on-one. And you should play through him if that's the matchup, versus like having Jalen Brunson hunt every single time down, because that it is difficult. It wears on you. And I think it has like a discernible effect on his teammates down the stretch of games. Like, there were 2 different possessions this one where Jalen Brunson decided to pull up over a double team while looking off on one. Karl-Anthony Towns wide open for 3 on the wing, decided to shoot over 2 guys. Another one, OG Anunoby, wide open in the corner. Brunson decides to shoot over 2 guys. He makes it the second time. I have a list. I don't know if we'll have time to get to all of them. I have a list about 8 of those shots that Brunson took in this game. And it is very difficult for me to tell how much of that is Jalen Brunson, like, at least in the context of the playoffs, like having a little bit of a hero complex, or maybe just like, maybe this is just who he is as a basketball player, saying like, I don't see those guys. I'm the best player on the court. I need to play with that confidence. I need to be the central figure to be the best version of myself. And if I'm the best version of myself, that's giving my team the best chance to win. And that's Brunson's logic there. Or if that's like Tom Thibodeau, like limiting optionality, because when Josh Hart is on the floor, we saw Detroit actually successfully execute the strategy that every other good team in the league has used to neuter the starting lineup, which is throw a wing on Josh Hart, then double him when he drives with your center. And Cat is not a good enough passer, and Hart is not enough good enough shooter to make you pay. And over again, Detroit extracted the maximum amount of pain for the fact that the Knicks do not have good spacing. They are a poor passing team after one at the start of the season, Alex. We kept talking about it. Looked like they were a great passing team. They're all of a sudden a really poor passing team. And Tom Thibodeau, whether it was just inserting Deuce McBride, even on an off night, his passive impact is just so much better than Hart because he has to be guarded, or some kind of schematic adjustment to try to get Karl-Anthony Towns involved. Like there was no pivot, and like the only thing that really changed was Brunson got really hot, and Brunson is an incredible offensive talent. So it worked well enough down the stretch. The Knicks played hard. Detroit played hard. Detroit played better. Detroit won the game.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we could get more into it in the next segment, talking through ways that maybe they can remedy that. I mean, I think the pretty obvious answer is just more ball movement, more people movement, being more creative, maybe going back to some of the things that they ran early in the season and or ran when Brunson was out, which Brunson definitely, for better or worse, is Tibbs's greatest security blanket at all times. And I think he would prefer to just have the ball in his hands pretty much all the time. But anyway, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Cat not getting the ball more also in the next segment, plus a whole bunch of not fun stuff. Unfortunately, silver linings are few and far between in this one. So we'll be back in just a moment to talk through the rest of this game.
But first, we want to tell you about our good friends over at FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action right now. When you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so incredibly easy, whether it's picking my favorite teams or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after every game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, what's up, guys? We are back here on Locked On Knicks. Yeah, Alex, I don't know where you want to go from here. Maybe get into the adjustment category. This was obviously just an incredible slog of a game, slog of a first half for the Knicks. With 3 minutes left in the second quarter, Brunson was the only player on the Knicks to make a three. They had 0 free throw attempts as a team, and unless I'm mistaken, their first free throws, their only free throws of the first half were Brunson's with 17 seconds left. They were down at that point. Again, 3 minutes left in the second quarter, 48-35. It was the worst offense. I believe it was the worst offensive first half they've have had of the season. It was the worst offensive three quarters they had of the season, and you said it. I'll throw up the tweet from the Athletics Fred Katz. Karl-Anthony Towns does not score the entire second half. Takes his last shot with 5:20 to go in the third quarter, plays the entire fourth quarter, does not get a shot off. To me, the most obvious solution is to play 5 out, and then you can't guard Cat the way they've been guarding him. But I don't know if you want to look back. I don't know if you want to look forward. What were your thoughts on Cat in this one?
I mean, I think even, look, yeah, 5 out is the obvious answer. But even if we're just working within the parameters that Tibbs is willing to work within, which is that Josh Hart has to be on the floor at all times during any crucial moment of any game. Yeah. You can just as easily just start running more pick and rolls with Brunson and Cat. Like, why you're doing that with Hart as the guy setting the pick down the stretch of this game, with Cat just wherever out on the floor other than in the place where he should be, as the guy receiving a pick and then, potentially popping out, or which I'm convinced that like one of the two most basic plays in basketball just doesn't exist for the Knicks anymore, right? There's pick and roll and there's pick and pop. Pick and pop apparently just does not exist anymore as far as the Knicks are concerned, because they don't run it. And it's the most easy bread and butter play that they could run to get Cat shots, but they should do it early and often, get him going from three. And like, we saw how that goes early in the season. Like, again, I don't know how many more times we could bring it up, but like the offense for this team ran better when they were flying by the seat of their pants in the first like 3 weeks of the season than it has any time in the last 4 months. I mean, really, like they're just when they know what they were doing when they like quote unquote didn't have a game plan or were just like rolling off instinct, they still managed to put something better together than what they're doing now in game 2 in the playoffs. And that's unacceptable. It's crazy that they just shirk like the lowest common denominator of what they could do to be good and say, well, we're just not even going to do that. But even beyond that, like you're working with this huge free throw discrepancy, which Tibbs made sure to bring up during the post-game press conference. And I'm not going to lie, it's pretty stark, like 34 free throws for the Pistons versus 19 for the Knicks. And I think it was like almost like 12 or 14 to nothing at one point before the Knicks got there.
They were 12 for 12 before the Knicks had taken a free throw.
Right. Which is, I mean, that I honestly did find a little crazy. Like in the first half, I did find there to be a little bit of a little bit of a weird feel of like what is a foul, what isn't a foul, and it was I could understand players maybe being a little bit miffed about that. But in the second half, it's like their whole strategy was just let's give it to Brunson and see if he can stop his way into a foul call. And not for nothing, like Cat, even if we take away the pick and pop as a potential option, even just as a roll man, this year one of his bread and butters was rolling really hard out of a pick and roll. And with the amount of attention that Brunson was demanding, like they definitely could have gotten some decent roll opportunities for Cat. Get Cat the ball, and then he can finish through contact. He can, at the very least, get you free throws. And unlike most bigs in the NBA, he shoots free throws fantastic. And so, like, that would have been a really viable source of offense down the stretch of this game, too. And yet, a guy who had, I mean, we were talking about arguably one of his best games of the season the other day. This game just is a ghost in the second half. And I'm not even kidding you. I barely even realized that he was on the floor half the time down the stretch of the game. And that's crazy. Like, this is a guy that we're talking about. I know money isn't everything, but this is the guy that's the highest paid player on your team by like $15 million. Like, this guy makes $55 million to not get a shot attempt for the final quarter and a half of play. And his whole bread and butter is offense. Like, it's not like we're talking about like his former teammate Rudy Gobert or something who's making like that kind of money strictly for defense. Like, Cat is out there to shoot threes, to produce offense, and you're not using him for that. So it's just like, what's the point of having him? What was the point of trading for him at this point? Like, this idealistic team that the Knicks could have been never is, because they're not even utilizing the guys in ways that make sense for why they acquired them. I don't know. It's just, I feel like we're saying the same stuff that we've been saying the whole second half of the season. And yet it gets a little more frustrating when you see them win game 1 by trying something different that worked and embracing shooting and like embracing something that was working, which was playing the 2 big lineup, which we were talking about coming into the postseason. And now this game, it was like the most undoing of good things I think I've seen yet in the Tibbs tenure in a 2-game stretch.
Yeah. And I guess it's so funny because you get into this trap where you start defending Tibbs and you're like, well, if he's not going to take the obvious solution, here's why it's really tough for him to figure it out. But I'm going to do that for 1 sec. I do think the pick and roll it's challenging when they're guarding him with a wing, because you just have Jalen Duren lurking, right? But that doesn't mean, like, to your point, like Cat could short roll and maybe get an open foul line jumper. That's a really good shot for Cat. He could pop, and if he pops, like, Detroit has to switch that, and then it's Schroeder on him, and then you can get into a post up for Cat, and Duren has to double, and then maybe you just bring Hard up and have him screen on the ball, and you get a wide open 3 for Brunson. Like there are pivots. There are ways to get creative with it, but it just feels like, all right, like you challenge someone to do a game of basketball and you said, all right, how would I win if I tied my hand to my foot? How would I win that way? And that's essentially how the Knicks are operating right now, which is incredibly frustrating. I want to get a little more into the game. I thought let's go Mikal Bridges. Maybe we circle back on Jalen Brunson, because I thought it was one of the more frustrating 37.7 assist playoff games I've ever seen, which are just ridiculous numbers for Jalen. And it tells you how weird the night was. But I thought, again, like, we didn't really get to talk about him last time because we ran long. I thought Mikal was good in game one. He just had like really limited opportunities and was quiet, but his defense was good. In this one, he was loud and like very mixed in that he was so active early in this game, right? Like he was really key to setting the pace for the Knicks. He had at least 3, maybe 4 different steals in the first half that were all when Detroit was in transition, which was pretty amazing. Multiple times on those steals, he proceeded to immediately throw the ball away. So you kind of came up scratching your head. Him and Deuce had probably combined 3 threes, maybe 4 threes in the first half that went in and out. And if you want to be optimistic about the Knicks, like still winning the series, still like, I don't know, and maybe in your dream world challenging Boston, you could look at the 3-point shooting and say that the Knicks were just 10 for 35. They missed they started 0 for 8 in this game, had a bunch go in and out. I would counter with the fact that Detroit was 6 for 27 and missed a bunch of good looks. That was not all the Knicks playing amazing defense, and their 2 gunners in Hardaway and Beasley go a combined 1 for 14, which you're probably never going to get again. And it's probably a bad sign that you lost the game where those 2 went 1 for 14. But again, I'll reiterate, I think it's idiotic not to play Mikal with the bench. Those are the minutes where he can take the lead on the offense. Same with OG Anunoby. Like that should be time for both of them to cook. I did think Mikal in the second half was really good. Like late first half had that sick alley-oop on the reverse layup from OG. They finally isolated him on Hardaway with 2 minutes to go in the second quarter. Right away gets to it, hits a fadeaway over him, hit that big transition 3. One play where Brunson actually passed the ball that made it 68-58. A couple other good buckets, but then fourth quarter misses 4 straight shots, a corner 3, a reverse layup in an isolation that he clanks off the underside of the backboard. I think a transition 3, that was the play where OG got shoved under the rim and they didn't call a foul. And then the last shot. And I was bummed for him that he couldn't make any of those, because I thought this was a night for him to get back in the good graces of the fan base. I don't know about you. I find myself rooting harder for him than anyone else on the court, because I just want to justify that trade, and I want him to excel. And I was really bummed how he finished this game, because I thought otherwise it was a really good night.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that he had the moment to get sort of his signature playoff moment with the Knicks to this point. And I mean, obviously he had his game winner during the regular season, which was this nice little moment during the regular season. But I'm with you. I mean, and not even just from the perspective of the trade. It's just like, I just want him to do well, because I'd like him to be, it would be like such a luxury if he was actually like the third scorer and like third fiddle that the Knicks traded for him to be. And OG could go back to being like the 4th best player. But then it just like, when Mikal's having kind of an off game, it just sort of exacerbates when like OG in this game just was a little off on offense and couldn't really, like, he only went 4 of 10, 0 4 from 3, like was not being particularly aggressive like he was last game at like getting into Cade's body on offense and sort of tiring Cade out and getting him in foul trouble that way and stuff like he did in game 1. When he scored so many points in the first half. So, it's from that perspective. I mean, I guess ultimately my motivations are kind of the same. It's like, that's what the Knicks traded for him to be. And it just feels like every opportunity that he has to potentially take things to the next level, as far as like what his role is with the team, or get a big moment or hit a big shot or whatever. It just, I'm almost like never more sure that someone's going to miss it, other than maybe Josh Hart, than if Mikal Bridges is shooting it in a big moment. Other than obviously, like I said, that the huge moment when he made the game winner earlier this year. But it just seems like the big shots have been, lights a little too bright, to quote a guy from another team, and unfortunately applies to the Knicks right now. We can get into some more factors from this game, maybe get a little more in depth on Jalen Brunson. Like you said, 37.7 assists. Still not what I would call a good game from him. I don't think either of us would. So we can get into that. Some final housekeeping notes when we get back in to Locked On Knicks. All right, we're back for our third and final segment. 100-94, the Pistons beat the Knicks. And Gavin, we've talked about it a little bit, but let's get a little more into it. Jalen Brunson, 37.7 assists, 12 of 27 shooting from the floor, 4 of 12 from 3, 9 of 11 from the free throw line. Did miss fairly clutch third free throw in this
Yeah.
one down the stretch when he was taking 3 free throws on a 3-point attempt that he drew a foul on. But, attempt he drew a foul on, that was the offense. That was the goal of the entire offense tonight. Whether that is a Tibbs thing or whether that's a Brunson thing, we might never know. I mean, I guess the only way that we'll start knowing is if the Knicks get a new coach and Brunson is still doing the same. The offense is still just basically Jalen Brunson takes the ball down the floor and tries to draw a foul. That then maybe at that point we can start having discussions about Jalen Brunson. For now, I think it's pretty safe to say this is just what Tibbs wants this team to be. He wants the Knicks to be Jalen Brunson bringing the ball down the floor, trying to draw a foul as plan A, and then plan B, try to get to the rim, I guess. Plan C, try to kick it out to a shooter, or like maybe plan B is try to hit a step back. Hopefully you try to hit a step back and get fouled. It's like ultimately it all just sort of revolves around Brunson trying to draw fouls. And like, I'm not even going to say that he necessarily was doing like a bad job of it at times in this game, but I just think there's a time and place for that. Like, I thought that it was really smart that they opened up last game with him trying to bait Thompson into foul trouble.
Yeah.
And it seemed like that carried over a bit into this game, and they did manage to get Thompson in foul trouble and eventually foul him out. But once that happens, then you should just kind of like count your blessings and say, okay, cool. We got out their best defender. Now let's try to take advantage of that. And with all the rest of the players on the floor, because then, that's one great defender that then can't switch off of Brunson onto someone else, or one less great defender that they could put on Brunson, whatever. And it just seemed like the goal just kept shifting to, okay, well, now let's get this guy in foul trouble. And it just, at a certain point, there was a certain possession. I think it was when like Malik Beasley was on him at one point, and he was trying to draw a foul on him too. And I'm like, is the goal here literally that Tibbs thinks that there's enough time on the clock with like 5 minutes to go that Brunson is just going to be able to foul out literally every player on the Pistons team? Yeah. Like, it almost felt like that's what the goal was. It's like, no, you already achieved your goal here of fouling out Oscar Thompson. Now maybe try to get a little more creative. Like, just have other guys running cuts, have Brunson off ball. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that like a couple of the better possessions of the game were ended with Brunson corner threes that he was able to just catch and shoot because they ran him off ball a little bit and had him find his spots that way, rather than just having to like put his shoulder down and run into guys for minutes at a time. So yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on all that. I think fairly similar, but it's just, it was one of the only games ever where I saw a bunch of tweets popping up about like, ugh, I hate watching Jalen Brunson. Ugh, Brunson is insufferable, and all he does is hunt for fouls and blah, blah. And normally I'm like, that's just part of the game today. But today was one of the first days where I ever watched it in real time and was like, this is getting to the point of being just flatly unpleasing at this point.
Yeah, I came out of last year's playoffs and was saying this, like the Knicks have what the single most valuable thing you could have in the NBA, which is like a borderline top 5 player in the world. And I just thought his playoff scoring had shown that. And now I'm wondering like how scalable is his game? Like it looks really, really good when you surround him. Like last year, it was not the best version of the Knicks, but it was an infrastructure perfectly suited to Brunson, right? A center and Isaiah Hartenstein, who's one of the best screen setters in the league, can get a whole bunch of offensive rebounds when you miss shots around the rim, and is a great passer who can hit you on cuts and can give you dribble handoffs and set you up for threes and have your back on the other end. Similar stuff could be said about OG Anunoby. Similar stuff could be said about Josh Hart, who's always seeking him out and always cutting off him. Dante DiVincenzo, right? Like best spacer to play next to you in the backcourt, a guy who's going to ensure the other backcourt mate, instead of being able to jut over and help you in a screening action, is like 20 feet the other way because they're so panicked about Dante shooting a 30-footer. And like, it was not the best team. This year's team is so much more talented, but I wonder if Brunson like needed that infrastructure that was so perfectly suited, like kind of similar to what Isaiah Thomas was on the Boston Celtics, modern Isaiah Thomas, where it's like if you build your entire offense around this guy, he can be great, but it's not as scalable and he's not as helpful if he's not doing this and he's not playing hero ball, because I just see so many simple passes and like simple reads that are left out on the court. And like reads, like sometimes I'm like, oh, it's his height, he can't see it. But then I see Darius Garland like kill the Knicks down the stretch, just running like essentially like a pick and pop with Max Strus. And like Brunson has that with Cat. And you could do the same exact thing with Mikal. And Brunson every time is like laser vision to the rim, head down. And again, I want to, before I put this on Brunson, I want to see a better, more creative coach. I think even like if this is Brunson, if you just played Deuce instead of Hart and it was 5 out spacing, I don't really see how you guard Jalen Brunson with that much room. So he could play this way. So this isn't me saying like trade Jalen Brunson or Jalen Brunson sucks. It is just me saying like he might not be quite as scalable as I thought. And a Pistons team that is long and athletic and playing like give JB Bickerstaff some credit, a really, really smart defensive game plan, like can make him sweat and make him work for it. All that being said, despite all the garbage, like Brunson was still like pretty great scoring the basketball down the stretch. Like it started, I think, end of the third quarter, maybe early fourth, where he ISO'd on Beasley and just hit him with that nasty drop step and little flip in. Then the play you mentioned, it was an ATO where he got the corner three, twice foul baiting the refs for not giving him those calls in the first half. I don't know if they took sympathy. I don't know if they wanted the final foul count to look better, but felt like Cade had a different whistle than everyone in the first half. Kind of felt like Brunson had a different whistle than everyone else in the fourth quarter. Like I would have been a little upset, especially at the one on Harris, if I was a Pistons fan. Maybe it was a foul. Harris kind of leaned forward, but it was pretty clear what Brunson was doing. But you know what? It worked. Sneakily, he is not a great playoff free throw shooter. Always seems to miss one in key spots. But then like down the very like tiptoe stretch of this game, like had the pull-up jumper on Schroeder to make it 92-90, had the ISO where he drew two to hit Hart for the jam, probably should have been an and one. And then like I criticized him for being selfish down the stretch, didn't force a shot, made the extra pass to Mikal, got him a great look. So I as much as I'm like, this is probably the most I've ever ripped on Jalen in like a important game. Like I give him some credit for adjusting down the stretch. And I think for the most part, making the right play.
Yeah. I mean, it's complicated because they both would not have been in this game late without him. And yet you can't help but wonder what a better version of this offense could look like where they didn't have to rely on him doing that and didn't rely on it for pretty much the whole game, or especially the whole second half, which, you know, if they had just come out and attacked Detroit a little differently, and again, you know, not to be a broken record, but like tried to play some version of 5 out or even 4 out, you know, like play 4 out with Hart being the cutter off ball. Like even that's worked at times this year, like just doing something along those lines. Even the most simple stuff, just like the horns, like double screen with Kat and Josh and Mikal and OG in the corner, like almost anything would have been a little more creative today than what they were doing. And so, you know, as much as like Brunson adjusted, got the foul calls, realized what the refs were doing or willing to call down the stretch, and, you know, almost pulled this one out for the Knicks as a result, like you maybe wouldn't have had to have that had the offense just been more creative before that, and had Brunson played a little more team oriented prior to that. I don't think it's a stretch to say, you know, like what you said, that he was a little too tunnel visiony at different points of this game. So hopefully things that we see adjustments on, or else the 2 games in Detroit are not going to be fun for the Knicks. And I mean, that's not an easy place to play, but they get a couple days to think about it, a couple days to hopefully work some things out and find some new wrinkles to try on Thursday. But we'll be back for you guys on Thursday for that, as well as some episodes between now and then. And then, of course, they play Sunday for Game 4. So we'll have you covered next week for that. Every single game we have you covered, plus some other great episodes. But until next time, thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.